Nerves still run high, even as security officials in Mumbai cleared the final site of last week's attacks. Some of the survivors have shown an uncanny resilience.
If I don't open these shutters, that means those terrorists have won and I have lost. No, I'm not going to do that.
Others want revenge.
When it is a war, then you should behave like war. Enemies are enemies and enemies should be killed.
And some survivors who returned home to safety, like Benjamin Makoff, still have difficulty describing what they went through, including the loss of friends and colleagues.
I mean, he was a sweet, nice sir.
In all, 172 people were killed during the 60-hour siege, including 6 Americans. Hundreds more were wounded during the brazen attack, now believed to be carried out by a Pakistani militant group known as Lashkar-e-Taiba. Investigators have been collecting information from the lone survivor, who says their plan was to kill 5,000 people in India's economic hub.
He's been talking and giving investigators a fairly precise idea of when they left Karachi, how they changed ships twice mid-sea, what their instructions were, how they trained using high-resolution satellite maps.
Pakistan denies any involvement.
The important thing is, everybody in the world is now coming around to agreeing that the government of Pakistan, the state of Pakistan, the military of Pakistan, and even the intelligence services are not directly involved.
Ahead of a scheduled trip to India this week, Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice said she expected complete, absolute, total transparency and cooperation from the government of Pakistan. Some believe the terrorists may have had help from elements of Pakistan's spy service, and India has warned that the attacks dealt a grave setback to normalizing relations with its nuclear neighbor. The two countries are bitter rivals that have fought 3 wars since 1947, and last week's attacks and suspicions only raised tensions further. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
Well, joining us now from Washington is CBN analyst Eric Stakelback. Eric, I found it interesting that the ambassador from Pakistan wanted to underline, and even the intelligence services of Pakistan, and then he adds a sort of qualifier, are not directly involved. Do you think that Pakistan is involved in this?
Gordon, I don't think the Pakistani government directly is involved, but I think there is a very good chance that the Pakistani intelligence services, the ISI, were involved in the planning of this attack for a few reasons. Number one, the level of sophistication in this attack, the training, the planning, the funding that went into it. This attack was at least a year in the making. These terrorists had been scoping out Mumbai, casing out their targets for at least a year, according to the suspect who was in Indian custody. And if you look at the terrorists, Gordon, they're in their early 20s, late teens, very young guys, 10 to 12 terrorists. That tells me there needed to be some greater oversight, a greater power behind these attacks. Al-Qaeda is one possibility. Al-Qaeda has been looking to pull off a spectacular attack for some time now. But the stronger possibility, to my mind, is the ISI. The Pakistani ISI founded Lashkar-e-Taiba about 10 years ago to destabilize that Kashmir region and to destabilize India. So for an attack of this magnitude to be carried out by a group of young terrorists like that, there had to be some greater hand at work behind them.
Give us a little bit more on the ISI, and particularly their history. Were they behind the formation of the Taliban in Afghanistan? And did they also participate in the intelligence in order to provide Pakistan with a nuclear bomb?
Yeah, Gordon, you know, for some time, the ISI has basically been known to go rogue and act on their own. They did found the Taliban, helped found the Taliban, helped prop up the Taliban in the mid-1990s after the Soviets left Afghanistan. The ISI, I would compare that they're very similar to our intelligence services, but they operate on their own. They march to the beat of their own drummer. If you look at the Taliban, they've been propping up the Taliban, funding the Taliban for some time now, because there's a radical Islamist element in the ISI that is sympathetic to Al-Qaeda and to the Taliban. So often they act on their own accord, separate from the Pakistani government. The 2001 attacks in Mumbai, there's been 3 major attacks in Mumbai over the past several years. In 2001, Lashkar-e-Taiba, once again, Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists stormed the Indian parliament. Now, India and Pakistan almost went to war over that attack. In 2006, the Mumbai train bombings killed almost 200 people. In both incidents, the Indian government pointed their fingers at the Pakistani ISI, and in this most recent incident, it's the same story.
Mumbai is the financial capital of India. It's also the entertainment capital. It's almost like you could combine New York City and Los Angeles into one city and you'd have Mumbai. Does that give us any clues? And do you fear that this same kind of coordinated attack could be unleashed on an American city?
Gordon, I do. You know, as you said, Mumbai is the economic capital of India. It's a spot, a tourist spot, a spot where many Westerners frequent. In terms of the U.S., I am very fearful about this kind of attack being duplicated. It's really not that hard to pull off. This was a seaborne attack. The terrorist arrived by the sea. Mumbai is a port city. If you look here in the U.S., oftentimes drug smugglers from the Caribbean, from Mexico, actually travel to the west coast of the United States in mini submarines to smuggle drugs here. What's to say a group of terrorists can't arrive in one of these same mini submarines? I look at the recent New York City subway warning. The Department of Homeland Security released a warning last week saying that New York City subway system is under threat of a terrorist attack. I look at that as al-Qaeda possibly lowering the bar, Gordon. For some time, al-Qaeda has wanted to top 9/11 with a spectacular attack that kills more people than 9/11, that causes an even greater media wave than 9/11 did. But I think al-Qaeda has suffered a lot of lumps in recent years in Iraq, in the tribal regions of Pakistan, and I think al-Qaeda is lowering the bar a bit. There's been some great intelligence work, some great law enforcement work here in the U.S., and also pure luck that's helped us avoid a major terrorist attack. Back in 2003, al-Qaeda actually said, hey, they had a plot to release cyanide gas in the New York City subway system. Ayman al-Zawahiri, al-Qaeda's #2 man, actually canceled that plot, said it's not big enough. I think al-Qaeda, now that they're refocusing apparently back on subway systems, back on softer targets, say shopping malls, I think that's a sign that al-Qaeda is saying, okay, we may not be able to pull off a 9/11 style attack right now in the U.S., but we can definitely lower the bar and have great success in hitting soft targets, which would cause a great deal of economic and psychological damage, as we saw in Mumbai.
Well, Eric, those are obviously sobering words. For you at home, now is the time to be in prayer. We need to be praying for our nation. We need to be praying for our new president, Barack Obama. We need to be praying for his transition team. You talk about a difficult handoff. This is a difficult handoff. To transition from a Republican to a Democrat administration, and we cannot drop the ball here in terms of our national security. And these forces, the forces of terror, have essentially promised us they want to strike our nation again. And there are rumors, there's chatter out there that they want to greet the new administration with a spectacular attack. So we need to pray. We need to pray for unusual wisdom. We need to pray for insight.